How's it going, everyone? David from dodmedia. Today we're going to be looking at the Sigma 24mm f1.4 art lens for Sony. So right now I'm actually shooting on the A6500 with the Sigma 16mm, which I think is a fantastic vlogging setup. But I want to see how the 24mm handles, especially on a full frame camera like the A7 III. So let's just see how that looks in comparison. Ready? All right. Now, I think I'm on the same color profile, Cine 4 color profile that I was on the A6500. Wow, this thing's heavier. Oh, I'm gonna have to change arms. Nonetheless, how's it looking? Good? Don't have my monitor. Good, I'm assuming it's good. So anyway, today I thought I would try out a little bit of vlogging to see how the lens behaves in a vlogging situation, and then I would try out a little bit of photo shooting to see how it behaves in a photo shoot. So I'm gonna head into town, into Oxford City, and check out the best hair and makeup salon there is. No time for B-roll. It looks like it's about to start raining, so I'm just gonna get going. Let's go. No, seriously, there's no time for B-roll. Of course it starts raining just as I'm leaving.
Much better. Let's drive there.
All right, all parked. If you're in Oxford and you are preparing a shoot and you need someone to do your hair and your makeup, I strongly recommend Brothers.
We are Brothers Oxford. We're an Aveda salon offering precision cutting and colour.
So I've just met Maya inside. I came to ask her if she'd be willing to take a few snaps because she's just had her hair done in Brothers. You good to go?
That's fine, yeah.
All right, we've got this cafe that's about to close, so Maya's gonna go in and gonna take a few shots through the window. So what do you do in Oxford?
I am currently working for the Museum of History of Science, helping with their move project to relocate their storage facilities. So I'm packing up artifacts and putting them in boxes.
What's the oldest artifact you have to pack up?
I don't know the oldest one. I am not looking at dates, I'm just packing them very carefully.
But they're arriving at their destination nice and safe and cozy, right?
Indeed, yes.
Okay, the Radcliffe camera.
Here we are.
Should we do some shots here?
Sure.
All right, I think we got a few shots that we can work with that are going to look awesome. Thank you very much, Maya, for your time.
No problem.
That was very kind of you. That was nice. All right, let's go home and have a look at what these photos look like. All right, back in the studio. It's actually the next morning. I was going to do it last night, and then when I got home finally, I was just wrecked. So next morning, I've made my selection of photos, which you actually saw earlier in the video, but I just thought I'd go into a little bit more detail about them here. So this first shot, typically it's the kind of thing that I would want to shoot with probably a 35 or a 50mm even, just because this foreground of that window, it would just make it a little bit more out of focus. Those bokeh balls would be bigger from all of the lights that are reflected in the window. And then the background of all of these chairs and stuff here would also be more blown out of focus. So I was a bit of a challenge actually shooting portraits on a 24mm, even at f1.4, just because it's so wide, which means that you really have to get close to your subject if you want any kind of focus fall off. Because even a couple of meters away from your subject, your depth of field is just really, really wide. But nonetheless, I really like this look. I really like, how sharp this lens is to start with. It was at ISO 640, 24mm, f1.4, and 1/125th of a second shutter speed. And it's sharp as nails. I've added a tiny bit of grain in post in Lightroom, but you can see that just the texture of everything is gorgeous. And even looking up here at the hair, these individual hairs are super sharp. So sharpness wise, even at f1.4, in line with all of the other Sigma glass, art glass, this is just sharp as hell when it's wide open. Next up, I got this wider shot, and this is with the Radcliffe camera behind, and it's a kind of iconic Oxford shot. and I wanted to have her standing in front of it. Now, ideally, I would have actually framed this so that she was dead center in the frame, but I kind of liked how she was looking off up to the top left corner there. And I also liked these concrete lines going off in that direction following where those lights are on the edge of the building, so I ended up framing it just slightly offside. I'm not sure if it was the right call or not, but that's what I got. Now again, the sharpness on this is fantastic. If I come in, you can see, I mean, even at that distance where she was probably about 3 meters away from me, that detail in every single hair strand is fantastic. You've got that beautiful edge light that the Sony A7 III seems to just do naturally, which is lovely. And also the out of focus rendering isn't too bad. There's a little bit of chromatic aberration there, but that's easily fixed. In fact, let's just fix that now. Let's go to lens corrections. Let's just add 5 of 5, defringe, and then just open up that range a little bit. There we go, and you can see the difference there on and off. It just gets rid of some of that green and purple hue that is on the edge. But to me, that just looks really nice. It's a wide enough angle that you can get background elements of that size in without chopping off the top. It also accentuates length, so for example, Maya's legs here look a lot longer. She was quite tall to start with, but it still accentuates that. And then here for a closer up portrait, again, super sharp. I mean, insanely sharp. You look at the detail in her eyes, the detail in her eyebrows, and again, this is at ISO 200, but I've added in a bit of grain in post, just because I like that look. You've got that beautiful highlighting on the edge again. Sony seems to just do that naturally. It's fantastic. And that is some very nice buttery out of focus. Now, everything that I shot in this video, apart from the very beginning and a couple of those phone clips, was actually shot using this setup, the A7 III and the 24mm f1.4 art lens. And I've got to say, video-wise, the autofocus was fantastic. And I don't know if it's because it's an actual focus ring instead of focus by wire, but I felt like even in slow motion, even at 120 frames a second overcranking, the pulling focus from one object to another was not kind of stuttered the way you get with some of those focus by wire lenses. This was super smooth. It was like a mechanical movement, and then there was no hunting once it had locked its focus, and it locked its focus instantly. There was no kind of, pulsing back and forth before it decided, okay, that's where I want to be. It was really accurate. I was really impressed with that. I thought that was very promising for people who like shooting at higher frame rates, who are worried that the focusing is not going to be all that good in autofocus. With this lens, it was fantastic. Now, a couple of downsides to the lens. As with all of the Sigma lenses, the art lenses that have been adapted for Sony mount directly, they're pretty big and they're pretty heavy. This thing on the A7 III with the cage and the microphone and the Gorilla Pod were a little bit of a workout on my arm, so I'm not sure I'd want to use that for a vlogging setup necessarily. I also kind of thought that the depth of field was a little bit too shallow at f1.4 for vlogging. I think for vlogging it's kind of nice to see a bit more of the background. So while it was aesthetically pretty to have the background blown out of focus like that, it's probably not the best setup for vlogging. Even though the autofocus was very responsive and was sharp and accurate, I'm not sure I would want to use that. I think in any case I'd be sticking with my A6500 and 16mm f1.4 Sigma lens, because it's a beautiful combo for vlogging. However, I do see this being a fantastic lens for astrophotography, for example, because it is sharp as nails when it's wide open, which is ideal for astrophotography because you want to have as much light coming into the lens as possible so that you don't have to use as high ISOs or as long shutter speeds, which risk having trails in the stars. So that's really good. I can imagine people using that. It's wide enough without being a fisheye. And then for landscape photographers as well, I can see this being a fantastic lens. And again, these kind of portraits, these urban shoots, if you're willing to bear with the weight and the size of it, then it's a really good lens for walking around, for street photography, for kind of ad hoc stuff where you are needing shallow depth of field, but you're also needing sharpness, and you're also needing that field of view that's wide enough to capture every setting, basically. It was definitely very fun to shoot with, even though it offered up a few challenges, like, having to get uncomfortably close to Maya because you just want to be able to get that close to get that kind of separation, that kind of depth of field. But It kind of made her a little bit uncomfortable, I think, having a camera literally like 1.5 feet away from her face. You could see the same thing in the salon while I was shooting B-roll. People were just a little bit kind of, there's a camera right there. So that's a bit of a drawback. I wouldn't recommend this lens for B-roll necessarily. Let's just say it doesn't really lend to being a fly on the wall, more of a fly in the face. But as far as Sigma's adaptation of this lens for the Sony body goes, it's fantastic. It's so sharp, it's so fast to focus, it's so accurate to focus, and it was a delight to shoot with. Alright, give this a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, if you found it helpful, and hit that subscribe button to get more videos from me at dodmedia. It's gear reviews, it's tutorials for filmmakers and photographers, and I run a monthly giveaway. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to know what you thought. If you have any tips about autofocus using the A7iii for photos, I'd love to hear from you, because at the moment I'm using a single focus point, which I'm then focusing and reframing, and I'm using iFocus as well when it works, but I feel like I'm not quite using the most of this camera's autofocus system. So if anyone has any tips to give me about that, about how they've set it up and how it works for them, then please leave them below. I'd much appreciate it. All right, cheers for watching. See you in the next video.